Hey guys, how's it going? Matt Laidlaw here with Laidlaw's Harley-Davidson. This is my review and test ride of the brand new, just recently released Low Rider S, brand new for 2016, mid-model year release. I want to thank Paul and the rest of the crew from Harley-Davidson Motor Company for giving me this awesome opportunity to come out and break in these brand new bikes. Now, this is right before the media gets their hands on them, so they have these bikes down in Southern California ready for the big magazines like Cycle World and other motorcycle publications to test out these bikes and give their review of the motorcycle. So the bike I rode today had about 60 miles on it, and let me tell you, these bikes are pretty awesome. I was super impressed with them. They're going to do really well. They're going to sell really well. So these new lowriders were just announced. They were announced to the world during the X Games up at Aspen. So I'm actually taking this test ride on February 24th, 2016, and the bike was just announced about 2 or 3 weeks ago. Every year, Harley-Davidson usually releases 1 or 2 mid-model years releases. So these were not announced at the beginning of the 2016 model year. They were a mid-model year release. So let me walk around the bike a little bit and tell you guys a little bit about what makes this bike so awesome. So this is an S model. It's part of the S series. The S series was first introduced this year with the Slim and the Fat Boy. And really the biggest thing about the S series is they come from the factory with the big 110 cubic inch motor. There's a lot of styling points about the S series as well. For the most part so far, they're all blacked out with, black components, exhaust, engine casings, covers, front ends. So this bike takes it one step further, and they have like this bronze powder coated front wheel that looks pretty awesome. I will say the style of this bike is really in tune with what's hot right now. Club style Dynas are absolutely blowing up right now. A lot of guys are trading in their sport bikes to get Dynas right now. Really good power to weight ratio. All the cool wheelie kids are riding Dynas, the low riders, the street bobs. So this bike really hits the nail on the head. It's really going to fit that niche of riders. They're looking for that type of club style, go fast bike. It's got the speed screen on the front, the little fairing there. If there is one of a couple complaints I have about this bike, I really wish Harley-Davidson would have stepped up their game a little bit more and put a bigger fairing on the bike. Everybody who buys this bike, for the most part, I predict is going to want to change the little fairing up front. But it looks cool, stock out of the box, and for MSRP price of $16,699, this thing is a slam dunk for that price. I mean, you really get a lot of value out of it. You got the heavy breather intake. There's some new technology that's been implemented on the Dyna on this model this year. You've got throttle by wire, which is as far as my knowledge goes, this is the first Dyna to introduce throttle by wire, which is the electronic throttle cable that was introduced on the touring bikes in '08 and has been introduced on all the Softails this year. You've also got cruise control. Cruise control basically came away because of the electronic throttle cable. They weren't able to implement cruise on this bike without it. Now, how many riders are going to feel like they need it on a Dyna? I don't know, but it's cool to have nonetheless. Also, you've got ABS on this bike, factory stock. You've got dual disc brakes in the front, which is similar to what the lowriders have right now, so there's no difference there. Another really big upgrade that I'll mention is this bike comes with Harley-Davidson's Premium Ride front and rear suspension. Now that's one with the controlled rebound that has the gas emulsion chamber in there, and it really softens up the ride on these bikes. I personally ride a touring bike every day, and one of my major hesitancies of riding the Dynas is that the ride just isn't as good as a touring bike. But the ride on this bike was really good. I was very impressed. So the shocks, I will say, are outstanding on this bike. If you'll notice too, on the seat, there's like a lip at the back of the seat. And it was interesting, one of the girls from the motor company actually mentioned that came about as feedback from people at the IMS motorcycle show, International Motorcycle Show, and basically people that are doing wheelies and things like that on these bikes. When you're up, standing on the seat, there's a little ledge there that's nice to prop your feet up on. I personally don't do wheelies very much, and I didn't do any wheelies certainly the day I test rode this bike, but it was nice to have that extra little lower lumbar support on the bike, because with the 110 cubic inch motor, This thing does pull really hard, and it's nice to have that back support, that lower lumbar support on the bike. So I'll go over a little bit more about the instrumentation that we have here. You've got your speedometer there, and you've also got a RPM tack as well. I like having the RPM tack because on a higher performance bike, it's nice to know kind of where your shift points are and what kind of power you're producing at certain RPM ranges. So that was nice to have. You have the updated switch housings. On the left, the lower left there, that's your cruise control button. I don't know if you can see it or not in this video, but so the bike's pretty good. If I could give some critique, I think it would be really cool if Harley just kind of went all the way with this bike and put a taller T-bar on the bike and put those two gauges up on the handlebars, much like a lot of the custom Dyna builders are doing. I'm pretty tall. I'm 6 foot 6 inches, and so for me it was a little bit harder to look down and actually kind of have a heads up display look of the RPM tack in the speedometer, without tilting my head all the way down and taking my eyes off the road. So it would be cool if it were up on the T-bar. If I bought one of these bikes personally, which I'm actually considering, I would definitely put it up on the T-bar, much like I mentioned earlier, a lot of the Dyna riders do. The first thing that you'll notice right away when you get on one of these bikes is with the 110 cubic inch motor, this thing just wants to move. I personally felt like the RPM that this bike thrives at is about 500 RPMs further advanced than the 103 cubic inch. My personal bike is the 2014 Street Glide Special, and that has the high output 103 motor on it. And even though I was breaking this bike in, I'm really good about kind of feeling where the bike likes to be RPM wise, relative to what gear it is. And I felt like I said, this bike likes to be about 500 RPMs further advanced than the 103 cubic inch motor. Just in case you guys are wondering, I do have a GoPro Mount. It's a suction cup mount. Suction cups the front fairing, so there's a little bit of a mount sticking up in the front there. That's not part of the bike. That's just a camera mount that I utilized that day. But another thing that goes without saying, most people will want to change the exhaust on this bike. But with a good set of pipes on this sucker, this thing would sound really, really mean. So the ride we took this day was pretty awesome. We rode down into Long Beach, and we rode up the harbor bridges over Long Beach Harbor, and then we rode into Palos, Verdes, all over the coast of California, up and down Highway 1, Pacific Coast Highway. Here off to the right, you've got the Long Beach Convention Center. So I really wanted to make it a point to test out the power of the 110 on this bike when I was on this test ride. So here I am going over one of the bridges over the Long Beach Harbor where all the ships go under, all the ports and everything. And this bike had plenty of power, and I brought this sucker up to about 4,000 RPMs in about 4th gear, and there was plenty of pulling power. I was really impressed with it. Harley-Davidson did just release a 117 cubic inch bolt-on kit that will bolt directly onto this bike, and I'd probably get the kit just for bragging rights, but quite frankly you don't really need it per se, because at 110 cubic inches this bike, I think the rating is about 116 foot-pounds of torque at about 3,500 RPMs, and yeah, this thing had plenty of power going up these grades. This is the Vincent Thomas Bridge right here, I believe. You can see a shot of the harbor on the right, and you got the Goodyear blimp going in the sky there. So again, I really tested the motor on these grades going uphill, and really, really good power. I will say that I would be really curious, someone that buys one of these bikes that really wants to do stunts and stuff on it, like do the burnouts and the wheelies. I'd be curious to hear what their opinion was about the throttle by wire. A lot of times when you're doing stunts like that, you want that instant power, and there is a little bit of governing properties with the electronic throttle cable. They purposefully want a smooth transition of power when you roll the throttle on to protect you as a rider so this doesn't jerk real hard, and also to protect the drivetrain as well. But that basically comes at the compromise of that instant power that when you do a wheelie or a burnout, you need that power. So again, I didn't do anything like that. This bike was being broken in, but I'd be curious to see what people's opinion was. Here's me using the cruise control a little bit. It works great. It's all electronic. It works much like the touring bikes. You push it in to activate the mechanism. You press it down to set the speed. You can go up and down by 1 mile increments by clicking the switch on the left, up and down. The lean angle on this bike is very much on par with the normal lowrider, the normal OEM lowrider or street bob, which is decent for a heavy cruiser bike. The lean angle is not bad. It's better than you're going to find on like a lowered softail like a Fat Boy Low or the Fat Boy S or like the Slim S. The lean angle on this Lowrider S is more aggressive, so you can get into the turns a little bit better. The bars are kind of Harley-Davidson's one size fits all bar, which I can't fault them for putting on there because you got to appeal to people of all different sizes. However, me being at 6 foot 6 inches tall, the bars were way too narrow for me, and they weren't tall enough either. So that's one thing, like I've mentioned before, that I would change immediately. I would put a taller T-bar on there. And these are very much a drag style bar, but they do have some pullback to them. Again, I understand Harley-Davidson's got to do what's going to create comfort and max performance and functionality for the bike, but I personally wouldn't do that. I would put a straight T-bar on there with maybe a more of a mild pullback. On the way back from the ride, we had an opportunity to split lanes a little bit, and this bike did it really, really well. Coming off of a big touring bike, a street glide, this was kind of a breath of fresh air splitting lanes on this because it was a lot more nimble and narrower. Now, the frame and everything isn't any different than any other lowrider out there, but I will say the suspension was really nice as I was going over the reflectors in the center of the lane. It absorbed it really well, and I was still able to maintain control of the bike and traction, maintain that contact patch, rubber on the road really well. So the bike was really confidence inspiring, splitting lanes. Again, this is legal in California for everybody outside of California that's watching this video. What I'm doing here is 100% legal. And that about wraps it up, guys. I hope you enjoyed this first look at the brand new 2016 Dyna Low Rider S model. Again, my name is Matt Laidlaw, coming to you from Laidlaw's Harley-Davidson, the oldest and largest dealer in Los Angeles. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. I'm actually really good about answering any comments that you guys may have. These bikes will be shipping to dealerships around the country in March. Dealerships are taking deposits right now. So yeah, check it out, guys. Thanks a lot.